rollout obligation would be to cover 10% of the blocks in the third year, 20% of the blocks in the fourth year, and 30% of the blocks in the fifth year. And this will apply, of course, naturally to the circles in which they have obtained spectrum.
Government and regulators need to adopt a very balanced approach.
The interest of the industry, there have to be changes.
The crucial decision on spectrum pricing deferred till Friday. But the big question is, will there be a compromise between the government and the telecom operators on the issue of spectrum pricing? Hello and welcome to We Mean Business. I'm Shweta Rajpal Kohli. On a day when the ministers panel on telecom met, we bring you exclusive details and analysis on what to expect on Friday as far as spectrum pricing goes, an issue that will clearly decide the future of India's telecom industry. Let me start by introducing our guests on the show. We've got Mr. KTS Tulsi, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court. We've also got Mohammad Chaudhary, Leader Telecom PwC, joining us from Mumbai. And of course with me here in the Delhi studio, Rajan Matthews, Director General of Cellular Operators Association of India, and Mr. S.C. Khanna, Secretary General of OSPI, and our own telecom expert, Arijit Banerjee. Many thanks all of you for joining us. Before we go forward and discuss what exactly happened on the issue of rollout obligations, at least one decision that has been taken by the ministers panel, let's bring you up to speed with the issue of spectrum pricing and what exactly took place in that critical meeting today. Arijit Banerjee with us to take us through all the details. Arijit, at least we can say there's some sort of a hint coming from the meeting today that the ministers panel is willing to examine some of the issues that have been raised by telecom operators with regard to spectrum pricing. What is it that the ministers panel really discussed today on that critical issue?
Definitely, Shweta. This is going to be a contentious issue, a difficult issue for the panel to solve. So what they're looking at the moment is if the payment which the telecom operators will have to make upfront now, which is as part of the auction, if that is reduced, can they actually go ahead and bring down and they can probably balance it with a hike in the spectrum usage charge, which is an annual fee which is paid by operators as a percentage of the revenue which they earn. So what the Telecom Commission had recommended was 3%. So they were looking at whether they could balance it in a way by increasing it and reducing the base price for starting the auction. Because remember that what is very critical in this is that the government cannot seem to be losing any revenue. Because that will then come up for challenge in courts. So the government is very careful on that, and therefore they are looking at this.
It's a sensitive issue because the government doesn't want to be seen as pro-industry and also doesn't want to be seen as losing any revenue. And if they do not go ahead and at least achieve the kind of revenue that TRAI had proposed, it would be seen as perhaps siding with the industry, something that cannot happen in the backdrop of the 2G scam. Is that right, Arijit?
Perfectly, Shweta. That is what the government is very wary of. And therefore, they are looking at multiple options. One of these options is this. The other option, of course, they have been looking at is the one-time fee, which is on existing operators. That is, of course, also a way of actually trying to bring down the auction price or the base auction price by charging the existing operators a one-time fee. That is something which has been talked about, but what DOT is now looking at or had been looking at was instead of the 4.4 or 6.2 being the cutoff from which the one-time fee will be started for the excess spectrum you have beyond that, they are looking at for all the spectrum that is held by operators. And that's something which, of course, could bring in a lot of money to the government, but is also going to be very controversial because many of the operators are opposing it.
And who better than Mr. Rajan Matthews and Mr. Khanna to tell us all what the operators want? We've been having this discussion for many, many days now. Looks like we're getting closer to the final decision. But yes, Mr. Khanna, would you be happy with
as far as the charging the present operators one-time license fee, government has no case. And we have convinced the government by giving various opinions of retired Supreme Court judges. You have entered a contract with me and you have signed the contract on which I am supposed to keep my license for 20 years. You have no business to charge me for the spectrum I am holding. And I don't subscribe to the thing which they have been saying, level playing field. If somebody starts business 10 years ago and the new chap starts now, how can I be with level playing field?
So let me actually ask Mohammed Chaudhary if he agrees with the view that Mr. Khanna is talking about here, because that really forms the basis of the main fight that we are seeing right now between the government and the policy makers as well as the telecom industry.
Well, there are too many factors to be balanced here. So, it's not just about the government's revenue interests and about the industry. It's also, of course, about the Indian mobile consumer. I mean, that's really the main person that is the stakeholder here going forwards. And, the issue really isn't to find a compromise, as it were, between the different parties. It's actually to find the right answer that gives the incentives for the industry to carry on investing, to finish the unfinished agenda of rolling out telecoms access to more and more people in India. I mean, today, rural penetration is still only at around 35–36%, so there's still a long way to go. So the key thing really is to get that part right, rather than focus on what the compromise should be.
Mr. Rajan Matthews, the whole issue actually is not just about revenue maximization, and as Mohammed Chaudhary was also telling us, it's also about the consumer, the tariff impact, because that's something that impacts all of us. And what we've seen really is telecom operators tell us time and again with various figures that were also changed along the lines of the kind of tariff impact that will take place if the government were to go in for the high reserve price. My question to you really is, how does today's meeting change any of that? Because we're going to see newer studies, newer analysis that will come out. What are we basing this whole tariff impact discussion on?
First of all, we are encouraged that somebody is finally trying to decide that there needs to be a reduction in the reserve price, which is what we've been saying all along. But
at least one positive step forward.
Exactly.
Right,
but the point that we're getting to is at this point some type of analysis paralysis. How many scenarios are we going to look at?
Right.
And whose model are we going to use?
Right.
Under what set of assumptions to decide what we're going to achieve? Our point all along is that this started off as being a very simple exercise in the mind of the Supreme Court. Listen, licenses cancelled. Put those up, put the spectrum up, put it up for auction, get the best price from the auction, and now we've gone into a tailspin in terms of all these other parameters. So what happened today certainly is good in terms of looking at additional data points, but I'm not sure that it is going to give us any conclusive decision point. I think it may perhaps further muddy the water in terms of what is going to come out as a decision point.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.